morning. Welcome to the ENVIROlocity career interview series, where we're talking to people from all different environmental jobs, industries, and even now all across the world, trying to find out what it's like to actually be an environmental professional and to gather some advice to help you to navigate your career. And I want to try to interview people who are way down the line in their careers, and the people who are just getting started and doing some really cool things, which is where we're at today. So we're talking with Brett Cotten, and I would like for Brett, thank you for joining us. And if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you are doing now.
Sure. So as you mentioned, sorry, I'm not far into my career yet. I'm actually still a student. So I did my undergraduate in biochemistry and molecular biology at Penn State University and paired that with entrepreneurship. And it's led me here now to the University of Cambridge over in the UK, where I'm pretty much combining biology and business in a program called Bioscience Enterprise. So I'm very excited about how we can all use entrepreneurship and biotech to impact sustainability. And I wrote a book on it. It's called Gene-trepreneur, and I'm sure I'll discuss a lot about the topics within. It's very exciting, all the different things happening now, and how we can have kind of control over sustainability as we continue with challenges like climate change and food sustainability and all of that. So I look forward to discussing with you.
Fantastic. So I'm really excited about you being here because I get so many people contacting me and asking, how do I get a job in sustainability? How do I get my foot in the door? I have my degree and it didn't prepare me for a job. So like even myself, I went into my biology degree. This was pre-sustainability and resiliency. So, but I went into it thinking that the career I was going to have, it looked very different than the one that I actually ended up with, and is different now. But when did you start getting into environment and business? Or did you start with one and it led to another? Like, what was your path kind of like?
Yeah, so I've always been passionate about the environment. I grew up watching like Crocodile Hunter and stuff like that. So I always knew I wanted to go into biology. At Penn State, they have a really great College of Science, and I ended up doing biochemistry and molecular biology. But the problem was I don't feel passionate about working in a lab for my whole life. And that's something that many people enjoy, but I wanted to pair it more on the business side of science. So I looked into different programs. They have like a business certificate within the Smil College of Business, but they also have entrepreneurship minors, which I explored and I absolutely fell in love with. So kind of combining the entrepreneurial mindset to basically do technology transfer from the lab over into the real world is something that I want to continue with in my career going forward. I really am passionate about this one specific area of biotech called cellular agriculture. And so I want to end up doing business development, basically creating real meat without animals, because that's a huge contributor to climate change. So I think the overall combination of business and science is something that's important, and a lot of universities are now recognizing it. But it's not always been that way for sure, but it's nice now. For example, my sister is at Northeastern University and she's doing biology, but within the next year or two, they're hoping that they'll be able to have a combined major in biology and business. So a lot of people are turning their eyes towards the combination to create real world solutions, business and science.
Okay, awesome. So I think that maybe what I hear you saying is that some of the students now moving forward will probably have a little bit more of an advantage, but maybe some people who've graduated in the past or even recently might not have had access to those things. So do you have any recommendations for where to get started or how to combine those two interests? So if I did graduate and now I'm, my goal is to fight climate change, which is kind of the generality. And I'm now thinking maybe I could get a job in corporate. What I hear from people is they just don't know how to cross that bridge or how to get their foot in the door. Do you have any suggestions for that?
There's a ton of information online, whether it's TED Talks or YouTube videos. I think Y Combinator has some kind of entrepreneurship courses you can take. If you're into the sustainability, which I'm assuming viewers are, there are organizations like the Good Food Institute, which kind of provides a lot of PDF files and different reading materials that you can look at for kind of the science, but also the commercialization opportunities out there. And the Good Food Institute also has an entrepreneurial community called GF Ideas, which you can apply into. I'd also recommend attending some entrepreneurship conferences if you can. It's a great opportunity to meet people that just have that mindset. There's one for young professionals and young students called Next Gen Summit. It's in New York City. And it kind of got me on the track to writing my book, actually. But even though it's not biotech specific or sustainability specific, just being around people who are going at the business side and trying to create an impact, that'll kind of get your foot in the door to thinking about the commercialization opportunities for science. And then I guess you can also take some side courses, after work with like, I think a lot of the big programs like at Harvard or Johns Hopkins have some courses, or like Coursera or something like that. So there are plenty of opportunities. And also just speaking with people. You reach out to people on LinkedIn, just chat about different areas you're interested in. People are always willing to kind of share their experiences, and you can get really excited about it. So building your network is a great opportunity as well.
Awesome. I love all the things that you said. And I'm glad you mentioned Next Gen. I've joined that group a little bit ago, and they are a really great active group. So if you are interested on the entrepreneur side, you might want to check them out.
Yep.
And you also mentioned Coursera. I love Coursera, and I also like Udemy. So I found that Coursera has a little bit more of the university partnership programs. Okay. At a low cost or for free if you don't get the certification. Udemy has more of just like a huge catalog of courses that are, you can take for $10 or $20. But yeah, but what I keep hearing you say is like, fill that gap, take charge of it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think entrepreneurship communities, Next Gen is the best one I've come across by far. They're very active, and you can connect with all sorts of people around the world. And then if you're in a city, you can connect with like a local entrepreneurship group. They're not all going to be, biotech, healthcare, sustainability specific, but the whole point is to meet people from vastly different fields and kind of combine your experiences and focus in on a project. So that can be a huge strength. You don't always have to be sustainability focused. You can kind of wrap people in onto your project.
Right, that's a good point. Speaking of that, so honing in on a project, can you give a little behind the scenes on like, where the project idea came from and how you decided to launch forward with it and your first steps towards that?
Yep. So my first year at Next Gen, there was an entrepreneurship professor called Eric Custer, and something that's very popular in programs is you come up with an idea, you do a business plan, and you kind of drop it at the end, which it's to the deficit of the students. Very few actually go on to become entrepreneurs, right. But they do take away that mindset that they can bring into a large company. But what Eric Custer did was he used his students as guinea pigs. He wanted them to basically have something valuable they could take away from the course and use to accelerate their careers. And so he basically had them write books or do podcasts or create conference events. And so that was basically these creation events that accelerated these students into careers they felt passionate about and kind of got them ahead. So I kind of hopped on the bandwagon, and I ended up writing about biotechnology and sustainability. And I got to interview some incredible startup founders. So I can speak a little bit about them if you'd like. One was Mike Selden at a company called Finless Foods. So he's basically culturing real bluefin tuna without the fish. Bluefin tuna are endangered. Wow, so every time people eat sushi, they're eating an endangered species. And then there's other startup founders like Ryan Bethencourt, who was a co-founder of this big life science accelerator called IndieBio in San Francisco. And he is now working on a company that was featured on Shark Tank in March called Wild Earth. And so 25% of all pet food consumed in the US is eaten by pets. And so he's basically working on plant-based and cell-based solutions where you don't have to basically factory farm animals to get that protein. You can kind of partner with the startups in the cellular agriculture space and kind of get out into the market that way. But it's all kind of culminated recently. It's about to actually launch October 28th. So it's been a whole lot of work, much more than I expected, but very rewarding. I recommend if you're interested in a topic to even just write an article just to reach out to people, because people like to be interviewed. So you can get a
Yes.
hold of them that way. And it's a great way to make connections as well. So,
Right. So
mhm.
I'm really glad you said that. I'm always trying to encourage having an excuse, basically, to connect with
Yep.
people, something to
Yeah.
say, something interesting. So even if you don't, I mean, it would be awesome to take it to finish like you are, which is wonderful. But even if you don't, it's something you're exploring, it still can open a lot of doors for you and just help you to expand your knowledge and meet new people. And could you really quickly just talk about, I think what's hard for people is to even think about how they would approach someone. They see people who are so far ahead of them doing really cool things. They don't want to waste their time, or, how did you approach those people who are, super busy and you might, hey, I want some of your time. Like, how do you do that?
No, exactly. It's very intimidating to just say, or reach out wanting some of their time, but having a good excuse, as you mentioned, is a great way of doing that. So the book allowed me to connect with people who are, top in their field. You basically just want to be very nice, very humble. Sometimes you can do it through LinkedIn, or you can find their email. A lot of the times you can guess their email as well through their company name. It's just their first name at whatever.com. But yeah, just you won't always get responses, but when you do, it's very exciting. Just be very respectful of their time and very humble and nice. And you'll get more responses than you might think with that strategy. So it's very, very great for making connections. Don't be afraid to reach out to anybody. Anybody is accessible. There's been other authors who have gotten a hold of, Obama or these other very top level, people in their industries. And you just can't be afraid to take the chance. Because the alternative is not doing anything, right?
Right.
So,
Excellent.
Yeah, just don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay, you heard that, everyone. Just go for it. So I want to talk to you a little bit before we end here. This always goes by so fast. You're now in London, so tell us where you moved from and how you decided to go there. And again, you're I think people like yourself, you tend to take leaps and always take leaps, and so are always doing really cool things. But again, for the viewers, how do you make that decision and just go for it?
Right. So I knew coming out of undergrad that I wanted to further my education, whether that was an MBA or another type of program. And so basically this one is over at the University of Cambridge. I moved from New Jersey after having graduated from Penn State. And it's basically an MBA for biotech. It's called an MBE, so a Master of Philosophy in Bioscience Enterprise. And there are very few of these programs around the world. There's some universities in the States like Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Johns Hopkins, Northeastern that are very good about trying to initiate that combination between business and science. But this one is kind of a specialized program that looks at pharma, medical devices, and agricultural technologies. So it'll kind of help me hone what I want to do, although I'm very passionate about cellular agriculture and using microbes to make things. But yeah, there are programs out there. You just have to search. So if you want to continue your education at a university, or like I said, there's plenty of other ways, whether watching videos or doing Coursera or getting involved in an entrepreneurial network. There's many ways to kind of bridge the gap between science and business. But yeah, I just started it as well, so I'm kind of just hopping into it. But it's very exciting so far. Basically, there's 23 of us from all around the world, ranging from like 22 years old to 34. Some have their doctorate degrees and other masters. But these people are over on the science side. They're very tired of pipetting in the lab. And so they want to kind of make the transition over to consulting or venture capital or business development, kind of along those lines. So if you're not passionate about working in the lab your whole life, you can always kind of make the transition, because a lot of the companies now, even though they're in the R&D phase, will be transitioning to more consumer-facing roles very, very soon.
Right. I know that you're still a student, but can you talk a little bit about like what types of other skills you think people could develop to try to help them fit into corporate world? Like, I think some people have maybe not really thought about that really hard, or they've just still been in school themselves and are just now realizing that if they want to get started in sustainability, they probably also have to learn some corporate skills.
Mhm.
Any suggestions for that?
Well, if you don't have a LinkedIn account, I recommend getting one. It's just a great place to network. I was very unfamiliar with it before, but I'm pretty much on it every day. It's just such a great way to reach out to people and search for them. So if you're,
That's how we met.
yeah, it's how we met. If you're interested about a company, uh, you can go in and search it, and you find everyone who works there, and you can kind of map out who you might be able to connect with. Again, just be very nice about it,
Yeah.
and people are very receptive. I think I'm very inspired by the entrepreneurial mindset. You don't necessarily have to want to become an entrepreneur, but it does give you an advantage in any workplace or any endeavor you do. Basically, the ability to recognize opportunities, do technology transfer or whatever, and kind of go at an opportunity. So I've worked on plenty of projects in my entrepreneurship courses that have kind of flatlined, and then I'm now kind of entering some new ones. You just have to be open-minded and talk with people outside of your kind of little bubble, because that's when you branch out, especially in entrepreneurship. It's just a very valuable kind of mindset to have. So TED Talks, YouTube videos, communities, whatever you can to kind of get into that kind of mindset.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's very good advice for people. Okay, before we wrap up, is there any other advice or something that you'd like to pass down to anyone else trying to look to get into something sustainability or corporate or climate change?
Yeah. If you don't know about something, but you're interested, just reach out, make connections. There was one entrepreneur at NextGen, I think it was, his name is Jeff Hoffman. I think he founded Priceline.com. And basically, he wanted to be in the movie industry and knew nothing. He created connections there. He wanted to be in the music industry. He knew nothing. He made connections. He wanted to travel a lot for his work. He founded Priceline.com. So you don't necessarily have to have an expertise, just kind of a underlying interest. And then you can start making, those connections and kind of building up your knowledge. So don't be intimidated if you know nothing. Everyone starts somewhere. And I kind of got into my passion with cellular agriculture kind of through the book, just kind of, researching, articles. And it's kind of spun down now into what I want to do for my career. It could change. But you really just have to go for it. No one will give you permission sometimes, but the most important person that has to give you permission is yourself. So basically, you just have to go for it.
That's awesome. I'm loving everything that you're saying. And I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit more about your book. I know I've told you before, I've been a vegetarian for 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very carefully following the advances being made, and I'll be interested in reading your book and watching and seeing what happens in the future. And so if you want to talk a little bit more about discoveries, what's the latest, and what we can expect to find in just a couple of days when your book is.
Yeah, so it's very exciting right now. In the US, at least, there's the Impossible Burger and the Beyond Burger, which are both plant-based, kind of an upgraded veggie burger, if you will. But what a lot of people don't know is that there's this next step beyond. So if you take medical grade technology, if people are in a bad accident and need to regenerate, skin or something like that, you basically can kind of culture, for the medical field. If you can take that over to the food sector, you can basically grow real meat without animals. So what's going on is they're taking tissue samples from cows, pigs, fish, and they basically culture the muscle, fat, and connective tissue. And it ends up, it's very similar to brewing beer, except instead of having yeast ferment sugar into alcohol, you basically have all this, animal tissue, which is genetically identical to the real thing because it came from an animal. And you basically feed it growth factors and nutrients, and you end up with real meat. So that will hopefully be coming out within the next few years, and we'll see it in grocery stores, within the next decade. It's very much R&D focused right now. But it's also extremely exciting because it's the future of the food space. So that's one big portion of the book, and the rest is on things like genetic engineering to save species, whether that's helping coral withstand warming ocean temperatures so they stop bleaching, or there's another startup tackling rhino poaching. He uses microbes to basically brew keratin, which is the same stuff that our fingernails and hair are made of, and also rhino horn. Right. And he kind of uses that as an ink and 3D prints rhino horn. So there's lots of opportunities to disrupt poaching or help animals in the food sector or wild animals as well. It's just a matter of kind of researching, connecting with people. There's absolutely a ton out there. But I would recommend, if you're interested in the food space, to go to the Alternative Protein Show website. They have a whole bunch of landscapes of all the different companies, the corporate partners, accelerators. It's absolutely amazing how fast and quickly food innovation is growing around the world, whether it's in Israel, Singapore, Japan, the US, UK. It's everywhere. So it's just about time for people to learn about it, since they're very much R&D and will be consumer facing hopefully soon. That's what I want to get into, the business development customer side of it. But yeah, so my book is called Gene-trepreneur. It comes out October 28th. And yeah, if you want to get a copy, there's lots of startup stuff in it, because that's where kind of the most impact is made by small groups of people, and they're changing the world. So it's very exciting.
That's all really awesome. It's so like science fiction meets real world.
Yeah, it's science fiction becoming reality. And some people are kind of off-put by that, but when they realize, that, for example, cell-based meat or, clean meat will be able to have more nutrients. You could take out the cholesterol and make it more healthy for people. So once it reaches a cost-effective stage compared to real meat, I think people will make the switch, because no one values that real meat comes from animals, right? If you can get the real thing by basically brewing it like beer, then that's the option people take, as long as it's cost effective.
Right. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of these details. We'll include, you mentioned a lot of resources and a lot of different startups and things. So as many of those as we can that we can include in the description when this is published to YouTube, we will do that. I like to end if you watch the other interviews, I like to end them with a lightning round of questions where I just ask you 2 words and you just pick one.
Okay.
We get to see how your mind works just a little bit. So comedy or drama?
Comedy.
Trains or airplanes?
Airplanes.
Eat in or dine out?
Eat in. I love cooking.
Awesome.
Love making pizzas.
Oh, pizza's the best. East Coast or West Coast?
I grew up in New Jersey, so East Coast. Although a lot of the cool food innovation stuff is over on the West Coast. Hopefully it'll come over soon.
Right. And then, well, you're halfway there. And then recycle or repurpose?
Ooh, I think recycling, but there's a big market for repurposing as well.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So
just quickly, yeah, one of the startups I interviewed, they're basically using microbes to pull methane out of waste treatment facilities, and they can kind of make biopolymers to replace plastic. So it's kind of a cycle of, food degradation produces, this waste gas, and then you can recycle it. So very cool stuff.
Every challenge is an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time and your insights, and I look forward to the book coming out in just a few days. And if anyone, thank you for tuning in. If you tuned in, if you were not able to, we will be publishing this to YouTube on the Environmental Career Coach YouTube channel, and you want to subscribe there so that you will get notifications when the future interviews are posted. And what else can I tell you? We have a few more coming up soon, so tune in. These are usually on Thursdays at 11 on Facebook, and then we publish them to YouTube. So thanks again, Brett.
Yeah,
I wish you all the best.
Me, Laura. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks. We will talk again soon.
Yes. And if anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn or email, I think you can put my stuff in the description as well. Always happy to help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Laura.
Bye.
Bye.